Flins is the newest character coming to Genshin Impact for the second half of version 6.0. He is another Electro main DPS character, and despite some worries about his shortcomings, as long as you have the right pieces, he is looking like a very competitive DPS along the lines of Veresa and the upcoming Nefer. So in this video, we're going to go through all his best builds, all his best teams, and my results from testing him in the newest Stygian Onslaught to help you decide if you should get Flins and how to make the most out of him if you do. Welcome to Jello Impact, where we build and test every single character to help you decide who you want to wish for and build. The version Luna 1 banners featuring Flins and Galon are finally here. If you're planning on spending for these or any future banners, let me recommend Loot Bar. I have been personally using Loot Bar for over a year, and I've spent thousands of dollars on my personal account. They are safe, using currency exchange to get you discounts on the crystals you were going to buy anyways. They have tens of thousands of 5-star reviews, and right now you can get a limited time offer for an even bigger discount than normal. They're very easy to use. Just choose the pack you want, enter your UID and region, and your top up is delivered in minutes. The all-in-one bundle will be available for a special limited time price, allowing you to take advantage of the double top up bonus coming with Luna 1 and Genshin's anniversary. New users also get a 5% coupon, as well as 2 3% coupons for clicking my link. New users clicking my link also get access to a $2 Welkin. And if you play other games like Star Rail or Zenless Zone Zero, you can use Loot Bar for them too. It's partnerships like these that allow me to continue bringing the content I do to the channel, as well as supporting my family. So thanks to Loot Bar for sponsoring the video. Alright, so first of all, what does Flins do? He is an on-field Lunar Charge damage dealer. Lunar Charge is a converted version of Electro Charge. The same with Ineffa. Lunar Charge isn't this big damaging reaction, but it enables Flins' own Lunar Charge talent damage to do damage. So essentially, yeah, Lunar Charge isn't the part dealing damage, it's Flins through Lunar Charge. So basically, it's just a cool skin that looks cool. It's a cool effect, but it's not, the reaction itself isn't carrying. It's Flins' numbers. Flins requires a Hydro on the team, obviously, because he's Electro, but he needs a Hydro for Lunar Charge. And his main damage comes through his enhanced skill and enhanced burst. So that's a total of 4 instances per rotation for most of the way most people will be playing him. You will be normal attacking in between using his skill and burst. However, it feels really lackluster. These attacks barely tickle the enemy. They don't feel like you're doing anything. And it feels a bit weird. I think maybe if I played it longer, I would like it more. At first glance, only 4 instances of damage feels a bit weird. It is nice to see the big instances of damage, but I don't really like the uninteractivity that you're doing with him in between. It just doesn't feel very satisfying, unlike Veresa, who is moving around and doing all sorts of stuff. But again, you know, maybe things will change. The effects do look really cool. He is really cool. So yeah, that's how it works. For his build guide, starting with artifacts, you're going to be using the new DPS set. So that would be the Night of the Skies Unveiling. You're going to want to use attack, and crit damage. EM could be used, but attack is quite a bit better. And then for the circlet, crit damage is almost always going to be the way to go because he has 30% crit rate from the set. Potentially with the craziest artifact set ever, maybe you could go for a crit rate circlet, but almost always it's going to be crit damage. And you're going to be looking for crit rate, crit damage, attack percent subs, as well as energy recharge subs. For energy recharge, it's a bit interesting. It depends whether you have his C1 or his weapon or both. Basically, his ER is 125% with no SIG, or 100, I'm going to even say 110% with SIG. It's just kind of nice to have a little bit more, especially for Stygian Onslaught. And then his Constellation 1 means that you don't need any energy at all if you have both his Constellation 1 and his SIG, which is very, very nice. There is also something that you can do, which I did not get a chance to test out because I didn't know about it at the time, but I will be testing it out in the future. This is a burst, a big burst every 3 rotations. So if you've been following along with Flins, you'll know that and his enhanced skill and enhanced burst, which is a mini burst, which is very similar to Veresa's mini burst, and you get 2 mini mini bursts per rotation and 2 enhanced skills per rotation. So if you have a lot of ER, you can do his big burst every 3 rotations. So it's 175 plus ER, and then like 150 plus ER if you have his SIG. So this is not something that I necessarily am going to go out and say that everyone should do. Every 3 rotations, this might get hard to calculate. It might be nice for Stygian Onslaught to have more energy, but I found 110, I had 111 with his signature was okay. You definitely don't want to skimp on ER. And if you end up with tons of ER, then yeah, this other playstyle is cool. I also think, just for the record, it's amazing that there is a playstyle that does use his big burst, even if it is only every 3 rotations. I would have liked to use it more because it's easily the coolest part of his kit. But hey, I'll take it. I'll take every 3 rotations. I'll take there being a way to use it. And, you know, as we go forward, I'll test it more to find out. So for his level, he is worth 90ing, although not as high priority as some. You can leave his normals at 1, leave his skill at around 6, 7, or 8. Don't invest too highly into it, as most of his damage, even from his enhanced skill, comes from leveling his burst, so you absolutely want to crown that. For his weapons, basically the Nodcry craftable is the baseline. It is quite strong for him. It is his strongest 4-star option, except for deathmatch at R5. And if you have any refinements on your deathmatch, you can use it over the Nodcry craftable. It'll also make him a bit easier to build with all that crit rate. And then Jadewing Spear being a bit better than that, Homa, Scarlet Sands, and then his signature being quite a bit better than the Nodcry craftable. This is thanks to TGS in the corner here. That is very small. Go check him out. To TGS. For team building, basically, you're going to need a Nodcry unit. We'll pretend Sino is Flins. You need to reach the Ascendant Gleam state, or whatever the heck it's called. And so you're going to want a Hydro. Usually it's going to be Ino, especially if you have Constellation 2+. You'll need some sort of Hydro to enable Lunar Charge. Ideally, you will want Ineffa. If you don't have Ineffa, you can use other off-field Electros. Sure, Yoimiya. The best one I found was Keqing, but also Fischl works. I guess you could use Lisa just building an absolute ton of ER. I guess you could use Beto. No, but not really. I've heard some talk about Electro main character. I've heard some talk about Dory. I think as long as you have Keqing or Fischl, you're gonna want to go with one of those. You can use Auroron, but the damage bonus is not useful for Flins. And you can use Eonson, but again, the scroll is not useful for Flins. So yeah, it's really Keqing or Fischl, but ideally Ineffa. If you do not have Ineffa, as we've been saying all pre-release long, it is going to be a massive loss without her. In the current Stygian Onslaught, he can get away without Ineffa, but in the future, if you're trying to keep him running long term, Ineffa is going to be very important. Sucrose is the best in slot support by far, but if you don't have a copy of Sucrose, you can go with Lanyan. Kazuha's damage bonus is not useful, so yeah, you're going to want to go with Lanyan as your second option. I did test quite a few of Flins' teams in the Stygian Onslaught, so Ineffa, Fischl, Lanyan did pretty well. Not Ineffa, sorry, Ino, Fischl, Sucrose did a little bit better. No sustain, but that can be okay sometimes. And then Ino, Keqing, Sucrose was, for me, I found the best non-Ineffa team. This was using his signature, but 85 seconds is such a good time. I'm not worried about him clearing the Fatui with the craftable. I'm not worried about that at all. Yelan, Ineffa, Sucrose, Kokomi, Ineffa, Sucrose with tenacity. This beat out Yelan just because you don't need energy in the beginning, so you know, it's very hard to get Yelan set up with enough energy to do anything. Ino, Ineffa, Sucrose, this is C2 Ino, and then the best performing team was actually Farina on Tenacity. Ino should outpace by the time she gets to C6, then obviously Farina not very valuable used here. Her damage bonus is not useful on this team. You're using her just for the damage from the skill, meaning you don't have to build ER, which is cool, and then you use the Tenacity of the Millith artifact set. So if your Farina is free, you can absolutely use her. And if you want to use her, that's pretty cool. I think one of the pros for Flins is that Ino and Sucrose are on the banner. So even though he's not that flexible of a character overall, because you get to the 2 4-stars, and the 2 4-stars don't really need constellations to get out of the gate running, you don't really need to worry about, like, it's a relatively free-to-play friendly character, except for the fact that you need Ineffa. So that is teams. Yeah, Hydro, just use Sucrose, needs a Hydro, needs an Nodcry unit. There you go. Rotation, very, very simple. I opened with Ineffa, then Ino, then Sucrose, but sometimes it was better to do Ino than Ineffa than Sucrose. You want to do Sucrose last because you want to pass the Thrilling Tales to Flins, and you also want max uptime on the VV. So yeah, that's generally the way. Just pick whichever character has a longer duration and use them first. No big deal. Hydro and Electro coexist on the enemy really well, so you can easily swirl. For Flins' place in the meta, I've shown this sheet a couple times on other videos, so I won't go into it too deeply here, but basically I think he's very comparable to Ineffa right now, and also very comparable to Veresa. I think Veresa does a little bit more damage right now in my testing, but Ineffa and Flins have much more future upside. Both Flins and Ineffa can make very good teams outside of Flins and Ineffa themselves with the support. So Ineffa can make some other good teams. Lauma can make some other good teams. So I think both of them have various other pros and cons. They're both also below Moika and Skirk. I think Flins and Ineffa are in a good spot, and so is Veresa. Just pick whichever one you like and try and invest into them. And if you don't really care for either of them, you can just get the supports or try and skip and save for something in the future that you do like more. I think there's lots of different roads that you can take with pulling plans, and I don't think that, you know, any of the DPSs outside of Moika really are so valuable that I'd recommend them. And then Flins and Ineffa, just like any DPS these days, they're really requiring other 5 stars. And yeah, I do want to point out that yes, they lose a ton of damage from not having Ineffa and not having Lauma, but at least those characters you can guarantee, unlike Chevru's Ianson, which you could spend chasing forever. For vertical investment, should you get his C1 or his R1? The answer is it's about the same. I would kind of lean towards his C1. For one, if you already have a 5-star stat stick, his C1 is just going to be better, but also getting Ino copies is going to be useful. Maybe you could argue R1 if Yelan's bow would be useful to you. I feel like even Yelan on Flynn's teams is going to be running Fav anyways, especially in Stygian, so I don't know how good her bow really is for most people right now. But yeah, I would definitely recommend generally saying his C1 is going to be better, but that's what I think. And of course, everyone is wondering, can I get away with using Flins without Ineffa? And the answer is kind of. He really doesn't feel like a fully strong and fleshed out character outside of the Stygian Onslaught boss that specifically caters toward him. So if you want it to be a real complete team, you really do want to get Ineffa eventually. C1 or his R1 are a fairly close approximate for Ineffa, but they don't address the sustain that Ineffa gives him, as well as Ineffa just is closer to a 40% increase, or at least a 35% increase, where his R1 and his C1 are closer to 25. So overall, it's still, or maybe Ineffa is 30. It depends on your damage and your artifacts and everything like that. But overall, Ineffa does feel like a bigger upgrade for him than his C1 or his R1. But you know, you can always wait until she comes back, or use either the C1 or the R1 or both, and that will improve his team damage even when you do get Ineffa in the future. So it will still be worth it, and he'll still be able to at least clear this round of Stygian Onslaught, so at least there's that. But once the shilling for Flins has passed, he will feel like an underwhelming unit if you don't have Ineffa versus your other characters. Overall, I think Flins in general is where I want to see him in terms of meta. I think that with the release of Columbina, who should be coming in a couple patches, I think it's going to be Nefer next, and then Durin next, and then Columbina. I think that he will be in the right spot, the right power level, probably around Skirk level. I think his animations are really cool. I wish his normals were just a bit more going on. He's got some weird AoE jank that we're gonna have to test out a bit more when he comes out. But the other nice thing is, if you'd be getting Flins, you know, Genshin's gonna be shilling Nod Cry for a while, so Nod Cry reactions, it's gonna help. But as usual for DPSs, especially for DPSs that are not the tippy top of the meta breaking, like Moika and kind of Skirk if you have a Scoffier, you know, it's a character that you can safely skip, but will also feel good if you get him and invest into him. So there you go, Flins. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments if you're going to get him. Subscribe down below. If you don't want to do any of that, that is totally fine. Just watching the video has been more than enough. Thanks so much. Bye for now.